Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, Jamie Lee returns to the show. Jamie and I talk about censorship, sun simulators, cloaked drones, and other wild and crazy things. And so, without further ado, here's the discussion with Jamie. Well, friends, Jamie Lee is back with us for the show, and it's going to be a very, very interesting show because Jamie has been putting a lot of material up on his YouTube channel, and I have been mirroring that to my blog. There's a lot of stuff, and you and I spoke before we got started here, that there's just a lot of very, very crazy things going on. And some of this stuff, we're going to talk about tonight. We're probably going to sound like two lunatics, but it needs to be discussed because looking at this stuff, the material that you have been posting, and it has to be looked at because there are some very, very weird things going on. So before we get into that, what I wanted to do was maybe you and I just chat a little bit to kick the show off about censorship, because I know that you have had your issues, certainly have had your issues with YouTube, and I have had mine recently with YouTube. It looks like there are certainly certain topics within the conspiracy realm, within conspiracy research, that you cannot touch. You just cannot go there. Other stuff, you're free to talk about, until you're blue in the face, but in my case, if you talk about these events, and that's all I'm going to say because I don't want this show to get censored as well, you have a problem. And so they dinged me twice for a show I did on the Sunshine State and a show that I did in the Gambling State. The Gambling State show, they actually reinstated with absolutely no reason. I mean, they didn't write back to me and say, okay, well, we're going to reinstate that show after we gave you a strike. So I'm going to take the strike away and you can have your show. But the Sunshine State show, that one has been taken down, and they did not put it back up. I appealed it, and they said, too bad, we're taking it down. So I know it's a little long-winded there, but that's what I'm definitely seeing, is that certain things you can talk about, not a problem. Other things, absolutely not. It gets censored immediately. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're all going through these wars of trying to get truth out, and now we're getting the truth ministry. I mean, this is George Orwell, 1984, the Ministry of Truth. California just passed a bill to create the Ministry of Truth to censor alternative media. SB 1424 is False Information Media Act. The bill would require any person who operates a social media and the internet website with physical presence in California to develop a strategic plan to verify news stories shared on its web. Any person who operates a social media website with physical presence shall develop a strategic plan to verify news stories. Strategic plan shall include, but limited to, all of the following: mitigate the spread of false information through news stories, utilization of fact checkers to verify news stories, providing outreach to social media users regarding news stories containing false information, placing a warning on a news story containing false information, and C, as used in the section of social media, means an electronic service or account, electronic content, including but limited to videos, stills, photography, blogs, video, podcast, instant text messages. Mike, it's been a lot of fun doing this, dude, but I think we're going to be shut down here in a little while.
Well, I was just going to say, based on that criteria, they should shut down the mainstream media.
Yeah, I mean, it's so ironic. I mean, I did a piece today that was on, it's the 15th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq based on lies, where millions have been killed of innocent people based on our lies. I mean, then I'm pulling up a story right here from October 6, 2017. The U.S. government spent over $500 million on fake al-Qaeda propaganda. The report went on to detail that the Lincoln Group revealed to produce print news and place them in Iraqi newspapers who obtained 2005 documents intended to tout the U.S.-led efforts in Iraq and denounce insurgent groups. So who's calling the kettle black, folks,
Yeah, so your view, Jamie, is it just you and me and our colleagues in the alternative research community that are seeing this censorship, or do you think that the masses are becoming more and more aware of it? As an example, I put a post up today. I don't watch Fox News at all, but there was a very interesting video that was put up by Laura Ingraham. And it was a very good 10-minute monologue that Laura Ingraham did about censorship, because she got blasted with trying to
defend the guns rights advocates, defend having the right to protect yourself. She was
Yeah,
defending people to protect themselves.
right, right. And then the other side of the coin, I was just trying to figure out how to label them without getting my show pulled. They went on a rampage to try to have her sponsors pulled so that, they wouldn't sponsor her show and so on. So we see this definite attack that's taking place on free speech, on free thought, on critical thinking. You just cannot have your own mind. They want your mind to be a hive mind. You just think like everybody else, get in line. And like you said, we could talk about George Orwell in 1984. I mean, it's not coming. It is here.
Well, and also, we have to give credit to, on the other side of the ledger, that we've been able to produce such our own versions of what we're seeing and what we're learning as we're growing and observing and being able to access all these records. We're being able to publish what we're finding on their services. So we have to give a little bit of shout out that they've allowed us to spread the word like no one's been ever able to do in history. We've been able to document and produce our own type of medias, and it's become super clear that we're having our own power bases now as more and more people are coming to the truth, like you're saying. I mean, right. With all the spraying going on and the intensity of the geoengineering now, it behooves anybody to not be able to look up and know that something's going on. So it's really critical for us to keep getting the message out with the little time we have left, as it will become impossible and detrimental and not very favorable to want to publish anything anymore. Because if you watched a video I saw or did on China, by 2020, everybody has their FICO scores in China, and they're all going to be based on how well they converse in the social media, how well they obey the government, how well they switch to the electronic currencies and whatnot, and how long how they're basically obedient. And if anybody thinks that's not coming to this country as well, think again. That's what all these credit scores are all about. That's what getting us in mass debt is all about. So you're not going to want to publish on their system anymore. Maybe we have to go back to getting mimeograph machines and I don't know, publishing pamphlets like the alleged founding fathers did and whatnot. But it's been a blessing and a curse. But we've had a long run of being able to put this stuff out there and educate and raise consciousness and learn from each other. I've learned so much from your shows. And before we get any further, Mike, I want to give a huge shout out to your music. You sent me your CD, and I think we call it an album still, and it's wonderful. It's in not 440. It's in what's the hertz you broadcast?
I have two versions, 440 and 432. Yes.
And explain to me real quick what the difference is between those two.
Well, 432 hertz is slightly flatter, and the premise behind 432 hertz is that it resonates with the human frequency. 440 was a standard that was put in place back, I think it was in the 1950s, where they were trying to put a standard in place for music, and they made it 440 hertz. But there are those that have done research, Jamie, into frequencies and how humans respond to frequencies, and music is a frequency. At 440 is not normal. It's an abnormal frequency. It's not something that naturally resonates with us organically, but 432 is. So, of course, everything today in music, especially pop music, is geared toward 440 hertz. And that's what we have become accustomed to. So what I had to do for the album was I had to record it 440, and then I have software that converts it to 432. And if you listen to the same song, but two versions of it, the 440 hertz and the 432 hertz, you will hear a difference. Is a subtle difference, but you'll find that the 432 hertz version of the songs have a warmer, more receptive feeling to them. That's my takeaway from it. And maybe I'm just a little more attuned to it because I've actually listened to folks that have done presentations on this topic, and they will play something at 440 and then 432, but they won't tell you which is 440 and which is 432. And some people have a difficult time picking up on it. I don't. I could pick up a 432 hertz song like that. So I did two versions of the CD. One is the standard 440 hertz, and then there is a special edition version of it where I also include the 432 hertz so that people they can see if they sense the difference in the music and how it makes them feel.
Yeah, and it's just by you saying inorganic, the music, most of it's being produced at that lower level to keep us from, getting higher consciousness with just the vibrational frequencies of the music, right?
Right. So everything is
That's all part of
touched.
it.
Exactly. And that's what I try to explain to people. And they think you're, an absolute lunatic for saying that everything that's worth knowing is a lie. And that was the title of the last show I did with Crow. And it absolutely is. And when you start to get into this, and the rabbit hole is very, very, very deep, they have their tentacles into everything.
Everything.
Everything. Everything. And that's what people have to
We
understand.
haven't still got, I keep thinking we're gotten to the, excuse me for interrupting, but I get excited because I keep thinking we're getting to the onion, and now we get into all these ghost ships and demon devices and,
Right.
and elevator nanotubes and all this stuff we're going to get into, and airplanes not even having fuel in their wings. And I mean, there's so much just stuff that just keeps going of learning just these deeper truths, and it's all based on this super advanced technology. I mean, the 5D using 60 hertz milliwave meters that can boil our blood that are being put in, millions of them. They're going to be put in everywhere, but first they have to get rid of all the trees. And then I think we had one show since we got torched here with all the laser devices, but now we're seeing lightning being used as weaponry as well in some of these videos as well. So everything's amping up. It seems like time is speeding up. It seems like all of these events is coinciding exactly with the war footing that seems to be going on with administration pounding with China, with Syria, with Russia, with North Korea, with Iran, with whatever. They keep on wanting to keep us distracted, while meanwhile this coverage, this dome, this massive spraying in localized areas all around the world has been going on now for weeks and maybe months. And boy, it's changing the entire landscape of our weather here in California. And people in my comment sections and from other comment sections are seeing the same thing happen to them as well. We're seeing second suns. We're seeing moons not being in the right positions. And this is all being documented. This is all being put on the internet. So yeah, they want to shut us down. They don't want us learning that our skies are being manipulated for whatever reasons they're choosing, or the sun is having problems, or they're using these systems to change our vibrational frequencies so we can't stop the madness that they're pulling on us. And,
Right.
and then all the rest of the massive debt we've incurred that, you're a finance guy and I'm a finance guy, and no one in the finance world talks about the massive debt of $21 trillion, that interest rates are going up now. And it's just going to crash everything. And so, things are happening much quicker. And that's one of the things I just really want to impress on people is we've got to get that preparedness even more ready now. It's like in Wall Street when I would buy a stock and whatnot, the worst thing you could do is have it go up and not watch it and miss it, even though you're ready for it, and miss getting into the stock because you weren't paying attention, or you've been watching it so long for the right price to get in, you missed the trade. But now things are getting so much worse. Richie from Boston saying the other day that all this fake sky is going to create the mass loss of food. So get your food supplies ready. This is what we've been saying for 10, 12 years. But just because we've been saying it for a long time doesn't mean the time isn't now. So I don't know. It's crazy, Mike.
No, right now it's like a nightmare. I hate to say things like that, but when you're in the know and you're looking at this stuff and you're doing the research, you're looking at it and you're shaking your head and you're thinking, this is really unbelievable what's going on. And you want to stay positive, and I do stay positive on this thing, and that's why I continue to do the shows, Jamie, and I know that's why you continue to do what you do, because we have to try to get more and more people on board with this stuff. And that's why I brought up circling back a little bit, back to the Laura Ingraham thing. It's because, before, when they would go after voices, they would attack you, me, Max Egan. Just pick names that were really trying to put good work out there and to get people to wake up. And I'm not just picking on the three of us. There's many, 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 many of us that are doing this work. And they would come after us and they would try to shut us down and censor us. But now they're trying to censor somebody who's in the mainstream media, right? They're trying to shut this person down. So what I'm talking about, folks, here is they're raising the stakes now. It's no longer just going after YouTubers and stuff like that and a website here, website there, blogs and so on. They're really starting to step it up. And they're going after people now that have a much higher profile, even though they're not covering in detail or to the degree that we are getting into things, but they are starting, some of them are, okay, are starting to lean into certain topics that they don't want them leaning into. Even though it may be like kindergarten or first grade level leaning into something, powers to be, the controllers, they don't want that, because as soon as somebody starts, like a Laura Ingraham, starts to ask questions in a certain area, like I said, even though it's very basic, there are many, many people that are watching her, and then they're going to say, that's interesting. She's questioning that. I should probably look at that. And they don't want anybody looking at anything that's going to even remotely expose what it is that they're doing. What we're going to do now, I guess, is maybe step into even some of the crazier stuff that you have come upon, that we really need to start to take a look at and do more research and understand what is going on here. And maybe, I don't know whether you want to start with the drones or the sun simulator, or wherever you want to start. We could, I'll go wherever you want to go. You could take the lead.
This whole thing, then, and I'm sure you're right in step with me on this, is this whole physical reality we're looking at and seeing these ominous, omnipresent things in the sky. We're seeing vaccines ladled with very detrimental things to our health and well-being. I mean, it's very much everything's backwards, upside down in the material world. But and a lot of people say, well, why don't you publish more positive things and whatnot? Because this is positive. This is about opening up our heart chakra. This is about opening up our sense of feeling and caring for one another and caring for the earth, because we haven't been. And it's a way to shock us into doing this. So I found this work, even though it's very dark and some people are having a lot of trouble just dealing with some of the darkness, it forces you to go inside. It forces you to find deeper meaning to life. And that life is much bigger than just us in this spiritual being having a physical existence. And the way I want to start is there's a book by this Dr. Eben Alexander. Do you remember the book Proof of Heaven? Did you ever hear about this book?
I've heard of the book, but I've never read it. Yeah.
It's a must read. It was on the New York Times bestseller, but basically the short is that this guy was a top surgeon, neurosurgeon at a hospital. He was Johns Hopkins, a wonder boy, went to be a neurosurgeon in, I think, Virginia. And he went into a coma for 6 days with meningoencephalomyelitis, which was a deadly disease that they gave him less than a 2% chance of coming out of the coma. Yet he came out and he wrote a book about where he went in the coma and where he came back from. And it was a near-death experience. Nothing this deep had ever been recorded. But it's now 9 years later, and he's gone around and give talks. He's educating all these doctors because he's realizing that the Western medicine, and I grew up in a Western medicine family, they don't know anything about how the mind works. They only know how the brain works, and they assume the mind is a construct of the brain's material thinking. But him coming back and now having to tell all these Western doctors. So the reason I brought this up is because in his book, Living in a Mindful Universe, he wrote last year, he wrote, any notion of meaning and purpose in our existence, of connections with others in the universe, of our very sense of free will, or even of such concepts as afterlife and reincarnation, all of these deep issues depend directly on the outcome of the mind-body debate. The relationship in mind and brain is one of the most profound and important mysteries in all of human thought. And the picture emerging from the most advanced reaches of scientific investigation is quite contrary to our conventional scientific viewpoint. A revolution in understanding appears imminent. This pathway of discovery continues to unfold and will no doubt occupy me for the rest of my life. Along the way, I've encountered some of the most expansive experiences and intriguing people I could possibly imagine. I have learned not to be seduced by simplistic falsehoods about an assumed world, but to strive to assess and deal with the world as it truly is. As human beings seeking a deeper understanding of our existence, we are all well served to take that approach to heart. So where I go with that is just like you and I were talking before the show got on, is that we had discussions about this new kind of sky we're seeing out here in California, and it seems like going on around the world. And I guess this started with me about a month and a half ago when I started getting on a website called Enslaved by No Media out of Boston, who started chronicling some of these chemtrail planes. And I've been watching chemtrails for 2005. I wrote a book on geoengineering last year called Geoengineering, aka Chemtrails. And I've been knee deep into this, but he was showing video footage of these chemtrails that planes were disappearing in the sky. And he was showing with his Nikon Coolpix 900 where they were having shadows that were from the chemtrails that were reflecting on the clouds above, which would mean the sun would have to be below it. And he was showing that these planes were flying much slower than we had been told compared to simple Cessnas taking off from an airport nearby. He calls it a circle of vision, that the dome, you go up higher, you get a much shallower view of perception. And his work is excellent. He's been getting ridiculed. And then he also had one on the airplanes, commercial airplanes having very little or no jet fuel in their wings, basically compressed air, which Jones Joe S. has done the original work on that. And so that's showing it. And then I got into this website, excellent website by this gentleman named Sean Gautreaux, What is in Our Skies? And this just knocked my socks off. And a lot of this comes from the comment sections where people making comments here, check this out, and I check it out and I learn more too. And so this guy back in 2014 documented over 20 or 25 or 30 videos on these devices, these drones that are in the sky, that are cloud making drones, that are refuel supply crafts that are up in the sky. And there's large drones and small drones emitting chemtrails out of them and shooting very fast and hiding in the clouds. And you can see them now. They're using filtering with infrared filters and whatnot. And you can definitely see there are crafts in the sky now. And I've been observing that now for a few weeks, and I can, look up and you'll see these triangle shapes. And once you watch his videos and you know what to look for, you start looking in the sky. It's like a new discovery, traveling to new places. I'm seeing the sky in a new ways. Now, is this new? Is this something they're doing different, or has this been going on and I'm just noticing it now? But I got to tell you, it's something new, because I've been watching the skies and they've never been spraying like they've been spraying now. It's just, I'm getting sent emails, video pictures from up in Washington and from Montana and from Canada and from Denmark. All over the world, we're seeing the same thing happening. So it's not just it's localized, but it's happening worldwide. So my question I put out today is, are they putting a dome over us? They have the technology to do this with their aerogel, this new type of technology that it's so light that it's 99.8% air. And a gentleman from Seattle sent it down to me and showed me just pictures of it going up in the sky right there. So we have the evidence, it's just amazing. So.
Yeah, no, the spraying is absolutely out of control. I'm in North Carolina, as my listeners know, in the Raleigh area, and it's just unbelievable. They spray just about every day. In fact, my daughter was over yesterday, Jamie, and she said to me, Dad, the skies, she says, they're spraying all the time. And, she's much younger than we are. I mean, she's in her 30s, her early 30s. And she's very awake, but people are noticing it, and they're noticing it because there's a couple of things. Number one, the weather here in North Carolina has been very, very weird, very, very odd. We have very warm days, and then the temperature will drop the next day by 20, 30 degrees. The other day, we're in April now in North Carolina. At night, it dropped down to about 30, was going to snow. Look, I've been here for 24 years. Snowing in North Carolina in April at night, I can't even remember it ever happening, to be honest with you, in almost 25 years of being here. So the point being is that we have these huge swings in the temperatures, and I know that we'll talk about this a little bit as to maybe why that's happening. Obviously, folks who are into the geoengineering activism will say, well, it's because they're spraying, but I think there's a little bit more to it than just the spraying. It's really something that we really have to start paying a lot more attention to, Jamie, but not in the traditional way. And what I mean by that is I mentioned the geoengineering activism. And I know I'm probably going to get emails on this, and they're going to be screaming and yelling at me, just like they were when, I was talking about the flat earth, because they don't want to talk about flat earth in the geoengineering community.
Right.
Forget about the fact that they were ridiculed when they first started talking about chemtrails and geoengineering, but they forgot their roots. So when another piece of research comes forth, all of a sudden they have no bandwidth to focus on that, or to at least to agree to disagree. But in any case, I digress.
And out here, we used to have what's called fog. I mean, San Francisco and fog. Remember Mark Twain, the coldest winter ever spent was
Yeah.
a summer in San Francisco. We don't get fog anymore. The redwood trees rely on the fog in the coastal California here. They need the top watering coming down from the fog they're not getting. And so the trees out here, Michael, they're so pale. They're so dying. It's just incredible just to see the redwood forest dying from the top down. And I've been chronicling the geoengineering, assuming that the cause of the geoengineering was causing all the trees I'm seeing in my property. I've had to cut down walnut trees because they're dying so fast. And a lot of fruits and my gardens aren't growing food. I have over 140 apple trees that are over 50, 60 years old on my ranch. I got 2 boxes of apples last year. 2 boxes. It was a completely shutout of apple production in Mendocino for us. And that's never, ever happened before. I talked to old farmers. They'd never seen anything like that. And that brings me to the sun simulator, because I never thought of the light being different. Richie from Boston a year ago started talking about the sun simulator, and some other people have come out talking about the sun simulator, including, I want to give a shout out to the gentleman, Jeff P. and some of these other people, Universal Media, who have been chronicling these sun simulators. And sure enough, I mean, now that I see what I'm seeing, I can tell these sun simulators that seem to be in front of the sky. In fact, when we're using the PX 900, Coolpix 900 cameras, and we're measuring the sun, it's seemingly only a short distance, and a matter of miles above us. Which to me, I've always measured the flat Earth. When I wrote my flat Earth book, I got the distance to be 3,163 miles above us, taking simple trigonometry of 2 points in the distance, measuring the angles and getting the distance. So now I got an explanation of why it would appear much closer, is because we have a sun simulator as well. And the sun simulator is out there for reasons we can only conjecture, but you and I and everybody else listening here have noticed how much more intense the sun feels on our skin. In 60-degree weather, in 50-degree weather, it feels weird and freaky when the clouds part and the sun comes out. This could be the reason of the sun simulator. Or is this the reason why vitamin D is so deficient? Because they're been using a sun simulator and everybody's being vitamin deficient. And then the question becomes, why would they have to put a sun simulator in front of the sun? What is the purpose? Do you have any ideas what it might be?
Well, I think it's possible that they are using it to block whatever's going on possibly around our natural sun. I was watching some videos on this, and there appears to be, now folks, I'm just going to say that I'm doing more research into this, and we know in this day and age with Photoshop and video editing and all that stuff, you have to be very, very careful about making grand statements about something being absolutely true. But let me just explain. I was watching a set of videos, and I think it was Universal Media. Is that the lady that gets the footage from Alaska and stuff?
Yeah, Universal Media News. She's really good.
Okay. So I'm watching this, and there are spheres that are moving through the sky. And they have maybe a reddish tint or hue to them, and they are moving with the sun. And maybe I'll try to put some of that footage in this show so people can see it. At the very least, I will put her channel down in the description box, folks, so you can take a look. What I'm saying is that there are other celestial bodies in the sky, and the sun simulator could possibly be being used in order to obfuscate those other celestial bodies. In other words, to hide them. One of the things that she has shown in her videos is that if this is a sun simulator, how the sunlight, it deforms. It's not a circle in the sky. That's what our sun is, a circle in the sky. It becomes elongated and distorted, and it appears to be elongating and distorting so as to hide these other orbs, celestial bodies that are in our sky and tracking with the sun. Okay, now I know that's a mouthful, folks. I know it sounds wackier than but I'm telling you, I'll put this lady's link to her YouTube channel down below, and you can go take a look for yourself. Okay, and you decide whether you think those are celestial bodies or somebody's screwing around with video editing or whatever, But in any case, so I think, Jamie, it's possible that one of the things that they're doing is that there are changes taking place within our cosmology, within our configuration of what we're used to seeing celestially and within our own sky. And possibly that these changes are bringing a major change to Earth in this age, and they're in the process of trying to hide it and also possibly to sabotage it. Okay? A guess on my part. Just a total guess on my part. I have noticed the other day, in fact, I mentioned this. Again, I was talking to my daughter. I see that the temperature, the official temperature by the National Weather Bureau, says it's 67 degrees. And I'm standing outside, Jamie, and I'm like, bull, because it does not feel like 67 degrees out here, okay? I'm standing outside, and I can feel that heat on my skin and my face, and I know what 67 degrees feels like. And it felt like it was 80 degrees outside. So there's another thing going on here where, and I also have mentioned this a couple of times, they put official quote-unquote temperatures out there, but that's not the real temperature. That's not the temperature you're feeling on your body. What you're feeling on your body is much, much hotter.
Right.
So is that the sun simulator? I don't know. Is it the natural sun, and because of all the shit that's spraying in the sky, that it's having an effect on us, it's magnifying or intensifying the heat? That could be too. The other thing I want to point out is that I remember the sun when I was a kid, Jamie. It was yellow, okay? It had a yellow tint to it. Today we have the sun. It's this very bright white light. Now, for some of you older folks, I want you to jog your memory, and I want you to think back to when you were a kid. And even when you were a kid and you were coloring in your crayon book and there was a page to color in the sun, what color did you color in the sun? Was it white or was it yellow? For me, it was yellow. Anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, and hiding things behind it. So one of the things I've noticed that they're chronicling when they get the recording of it, and maybe you saw that video where they showed the hexagon inside the yellow sun at sunset. Yeah. You could see an object in the middle of that as well. Like that's another controlling device as well.
Richie showed one where it was spinning. Did you see that one?
Right. Yeah. No, that's the one I put in there, and it shows it spinning and rotating. Yeah, and that's with the lady at Universal News Media up doing the footage of Alaska, and they're taking the same. I mean, this lady's using the 24-hour cam that they have up in Alaska, pointing different directions to do her work. So there's not really a question other than is it the lens, focal lens that it's opening and closing that you're copying, and that's what you're seeing, which some people have said. But no, this object is completely moving inside the sun. But she also has others, and I hate to use the word planet. I'll use the word plane T, because that's where the word planet came from on flat Earth, folks. It was a plane. T stands for Terra, so they added a T and called it a planet. And I call what we used to call planets, I call them luminaries. So she's showing these luminaries, these round spheres that are adjacent to both sides of the sun using filters and showing there's clearly something there. But according to the documentation and the patents that I could find out, they can only block out with their camouflaging technology using nanotubes, carbon nanotubes and whatnot in certain patterns to block out 98%. So that would mean we get to see a 2%, and at sunset and sunrise, that's exactly what they're showing. So we can conjecture back to what this person, Mr. Gautreaux, is talking about is what is in our skies with these ships and whatnot. And this can go all the way back to the Vedic cultures, to I think they're called Varamas, what they had. Right. They had spaceships in the clouds that sprayed clouds, that did cloud making machines. Now, this has taken my head up again, and I read all of Zachariah Stitchin's books a few years ago, and I walked Mark Passio did an excellent presentation on the Anunnaki and Enlil and Enki, and did they come 300,000 years ago and mine gold because they destroyed their luminary, their Earth, and so they had to mine the gold here, and they did happen to crossbreed us with horses for a centaur and falcons, and the images, the hieroglyphs you see on the Egyptian pyramids are really what was real, and that our 15th chromosome matches exactly the missing DNA chromosome of animals? Did they hybrid us now? Are these machines now part of their part of them going up there and spinning the web that the Hopi prophecy has been talking about the day of purification when they're spinning cobwebs in the sky? I mean, I don't know, Mike. It's beyond my pay grade, but it just keeps getting more and more interesting to be on top of this and seeing what is happening. But getting back to the technology, I mean, I chronicled in one of my YouTubes where Google has the technology to put elevator nanocarbon tubes in the sky, and they've been working on it for over a decade, and they have groups that meet upon it and regular meet conferences for over a decade on this stuff. So to say there's not stuff up in the sky, they don't have technology, and space ribbons and whatnot for refueling, resupplying. The camouflaging technology is definitely there. The sun simulators seem to be in the sky. And then the other thing is the moon simulators. People are reporting, and maybe everybody can check this out for themselves. We're only, 2 weeks past, spring equinox. March 21st, when equal sun and moon are equal at the same. Well, we're getting reports I'm seeing on YouTube where people are reporting that the sun is much further north than they've ever seen. In fact, it's so far north, they're getting sun on the north side of their house, which they've never gotten this time of year. They only would get in June when it would get closer to the high point of the summer solar peak. And so they're showing videos also in some of these, Jeff P. and others are showing the moon going in and out. And people are saying the moon's coming here, setting over here. The moon, like the sun, is getting larger. It's getting smaller. But it clearly tells you one thing. The moon doesn't move up and down the ocean twice a day. It's moving all around like that. Another flat earth plug here. And so there's so many things going on up in the sky now. And when you look up and see a beautiful blue day, and by a couple hours, all these cloud making devices show up out of nowhere, make these hexagonal and DNA coils. And, I swear I saw this, and put your tinfoil hats on, because, what is in our skies talked a lot about this, but I'm seeing it too. I see images in the sky. I posted one of a face moving across that someone had filmed in one of my videos. But yes, 2 days ago, when they were starting their sky painting about 1:00, I'm watching, and within an hour, I looked up again, and I looked again, and I said, no way. And here I watched this heliocylindrical coil unwind, and it unwound to the form of a hummingbird. A very large hummingbird with a large proboscis nose, and that nose was going straight into one of the rays of a giant sun ray halo that was made all of artificial clouds. It covered such a huge part of the sky, and I wasn't smoking anything. I mean, it was just right there. And I told a couple people just to see what their reaction be. I said, what do you see up there right there? And they go, oh, that looks like a hummingbird.
Yeah.
I mean, they saw it too. And so that's what we're seeing is they're able to create a lot of images in the sky. They can control down at the nanoparticulate level. And this is something people don't understand. Nanoparticles is $1 trillion business. It's over $50 billion business in our foods. CRISPR technologies we talked about before just got approved to be in the plants now. So all plants are going to be artificial now. But what is coming down with all this increased spraying in our skies? Are we getting sicker? Well, that's what a lot of people are saying. Are there flus in there? They're coming out with a new strain of flu B now because they have so many different types of flus they can't control because the flu was so effective. I don't know, Mike. I don't know what we can do. We just have to stay vigilant and aware and do the healing as best we can and find a way to be okay with it all.
Yeah, because this steps it up to a whole different level, the stuff that we're talking about. Now, Jamie, I just want to back up a little bit for the audience now. When we talk about these crafts or these drones, you're talking about they have a cloaking ability, right? They're able to cloak, and you can see them if you know how to be able to look in the sky and see the telltale signs, and it's very difficult. I have a hard time, even when I see the videos, trying to see the outlines and what was the name of that fellow who did this work? Quay, you said?
Sean Gautreaux, What is in Our Sky?
What is in Our Skies, yeah. So I have a hard time trying to look at it, and sometimes it's easier. A lot of times it's not. Looks like a Rorschach test to me. But the times that I do see it, I'm like, okay, I do see it. So what we're saying is that they have the ability to cloak, that they have craft in the sky that they can hide, that unless you really, really know what you're looking for, you are not going to see it. Right? Am I right?
Right. And when you see it, you're not sure if what you're seeing is actually that, because you are dealing with a cloaking device. But when you stop and I would put up, I'd look at the sky and I had my baseball cap on, and then I'd put a ruler on the side of the cap to measure how much volume, if I could tell. One of the ways I do that is if I see something and it moves so slow when it exerts the chemtrail clouds, but you can see the clouds getting wider and bigger at certain points. Another thing to look for, Mike, as we become new to this, is look for a bright white, like a lightning stripe or curvature around the outside of a highlight where the sun would seem to be reflecting. That is the corona of the ship that I've learned to look for, and also triangle shapes. And just remember, like looking at a TV screen from all different angles, you got to be thinking in kind of three-dimensional when you're looking at these things, because you could be looking at it from an angle, you could be looking at it from the bottom, or you could be looking at it from the side. But we have so much evidence on YouTube now of these crafts, these ships, these images, and all of a sudden they're in the sky. These blackened triangles in the sky is a real clue. Yep. If you see triangles with black in them, follow that. And then the other thing to do is when you see a trail, if you see a trail that has no plane, I'm not talking about a chemtrail. I'm talking about these puffballs, these sinewy, wiry kind of vein-like features, like they're like birds in the sky type of thing. Look where the trail is going, and then go back to the source. And generally, you're going to find something to do with a craft being there, because you can see it emanating from a single point, and that'll just keep going over a period of time. The trail will get longer and wider, but look where it's emanating from. And then there's other craft that are added as these smaller craft come in. But what is in our skies, Mr. Gautreaux has chronicled that some of these craft, he's documented, these Aurora craft apparently from Lockheed Martin, are as big as 300 feet, where others have documented that NASA was saying some are as big, these solar shields are as big as a football field, a baseball diamond to me. So these are massive things in the sky, and then there's also smaller ones as well. So again, do we know what we're looking at? Not really. But, wouldn't it be great if we got to film one of these, if one actually does show itself with the cloaking devices? And another thing, these cloaking devices, I've got over 20 patents I've shown on these cloaking devices they've had for decades on how to cloak things. Wideband electromagnetic cloaking systems right here, cloak patent 8253639. And they have all these cloaking devices. Toyota car manufacturers coming out with a cloaking device on their car. It's becoming so mainstream now to see somebody through the side window you can't see, you're blocking your blind spot. They're going to come out with a cloaking device. So it's incredibly mainstream. But again, we're not keeping up with their technology. Moore's law says computers double in speed every year or faster. Well, so does their advancement and their abilities to put all this stuff up there, and their abilities to keep it in a very micro level and to keep us from knowing. And people ask, well, where do these devices go? Where do these ships go? Where do they craft? Well, they can put them anywhere they want. They got military bases all over the world. Maybe they got underground bases they put them in. Who knows where they put these things, but you're not going to see them.
Yeah, they're not going to park it at Walmart for you,
Yeah, but we see enough of these this SXB-72, which was supposed to be the first completely cloaked free energy vehicle that they launched a couple of years ago. We saw in Los Angeles that thing in the sky, that the vortex thing in the sky that was reported in Los Angeles. So we're seeing them conducting all their activities in the sky, but it won't be long before we're going to get a real picture of one of these crafts. What is up in our sky said he's seen them. He just hasn't been quick enough to photograph them. So I'm sure we're going to get something out of there, but this is a whole new game. And then the other thing is, like in China, they just announced they're going to be seeding 3 million acres of land, square million acres. They're going to be seeding with rain. I mean, does anybody want to not say geoengineering isn't happening? It's incredible. They're coming out, like you said. I mean, they're not trying to hide anything anymore. Either they can't hide it, They don't want to hide it. They don't care because it's checkmate. They already got us covered. I don't know. But things are being disclosed and they're not even trying to explain it. Like the laser fires, the directed energy weapons in Santa Rosa and Southern California. It's been we're coming up on 9 months now. The California fire chief cannot even tell you how these fires started.
Yeah.
Yet we know they were lasers. We know they were torched, and these poor people out here, Mike, they're not getting back in their homes. 11,000 people lost their homes. They're finding benzene in the soil now, and they're having to replace the entire water systems. It might be 2 years before people get in. The homeless now are getting kicked out where they got kicked out of their last shelters. They're cutting 30% of the mental health departments here and whatnot. So we're seeing this Agenda 21 morphing with the big brother on the censorship of our abilities to communicate and speak truth to power, mass vaccines going on everywhere that don't work, but everybody keeps doing it. I mean, and a massive debt. So I don't know. It's time for us to step up and more awakening. So we have to start talking to others and start bringing up more and more conversations about this, even though we've been shuttered. It's really important now that we keep speaking out because I'm having so many conversations now about what's going on in our sky, about 5G, about vaccines. Everybody's starting to wake up, but you got to remember where we were when we started to wake up, because if you take them from the ground and bring them to the top of Everest on the conspiracy world, you'll blow their heads up with the stuff we're talking about now.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. This discussion here is this is science fiction to like 99.99% of the population, but I don't know. But, I wanted to just mention, Jamie, we talk about these craft, and what I'll try to do is to include some of the video so that folks can take a look at while we're talking so that they can kind of piece it together, because I know just discussing it without the actual visuals might be a little tough. So I'll try to do that when I put this show together. But the TR-3B is the triangular craft that has been around for a very, very long time. It's a top secret project. It's been filmed. It has been people have taken pictures of it. And I have two friends, two very, very good friends. They're not crazy, that have seen the TR-3B, the triangular craft, above them. So about 4 or 5 years ago, one of my friends contacted me and they said, Mike, I know that you're into this stuff, but I just saw the strangest thing. I was in my backyard, and I looked up, and up in the sky was a triangular craft. Noiseless, no noise, silent. And I said, well, how high was it? They said, well, it was in the sky. It was high, but it wasn't like high. I mean, I can make everything out. The lights at the bottom and all that stuff. The other person, I'll just tell you who it was my daughter. So about a year ago, maybe a little less, she said to me, Dad, we were driving on the road and we look out the window and she sees a triangular craft in the sky. Silent. And she nudged her boyfriend and she said, take a look out the window and tell me what it is that you see. And the triangular craft was there. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because with these cloaked craft that are in the sky, many of them appear triangular. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a clip, a very good clip I found that has to do with the TR-3B, which was filmed, videotaped, two of them in the sky. And Jamie, the maneuvers that they were doing, that they were filmed doing, defies anything that we would know with traditional aircraft. So this would also explain, with some of the work that you have shown with these cloaked craft, how the way they move is not traditional. It's not this straight line, ascending, descending. They're able to do some pretty crazy maneuvers in the sky. And I'm going to add that footage into this show so people can take a look, because again, I know it's very difficult to kind of get this if you don't see the visual. So I'll put that in the show.
Right. And also realize we have to keep reminding ourselves that free energy has been around for over a century. Tesla and the guys before them have given us this free energy. So if the military's had this, their abilities to move machines at the speed of light, to stop them in the air, all this is it's just old news for us. But they're still working on giving us fossil fuel gasoline from dinosaurs that died allegedly. I mean, the stories. So we got to keep upgrading what the technology abilities are, and how potent they can become. But like I said, people are seeing these shapes in the skies, and you're seeing these crafts, and more people are saying, I'm not crazy, as we bring this stuff up. That's the other good part about this stuff. We bring it up, and people have been holding their silence and seeing it. And I'm getting so many comments going, starts off with, thank you. I'm showing this to my wife. She's been calling me crazy. And now I'm going, look, it's not just me. I mean, things like that validate a lot of what people have seen as well. And we're just coming on to it as well. And just, it's so much going on up there. And think about the funding for the military, for the Air Force, the $1 trillion that they spend, and how much money goes to all this research about what they can do and what their abilities are. So it's no wonder they have these devices. This is from January 2016 on directed energy weapons, and it lists all the directed energy patents. But this one here, U.S. Army looks to strike foes with lightning weapon. And we've been getting some freaky lightning storms. We've been getting orange snow up. Did you read about that up in Siberia, where they had orange snow and they blamed it on the dust coming up from the Sahara?
Yeah, a dust storm blew in. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's the gold. The golden sky is they're putting gold in there. I forget the name for it, but there seems to be seeding the sky with gold. And now they've got these lightning weapons. This Australia one had this lightning storm like nobody had ever seen before. And there's others, but it says U.S. Army lab is testing. When they say testing, that means they already have it. How lasers can create an energized plasma channeled in the air, an invisible pathway for electricity to follow. Electricity to follow, invisible pathway. The laser-guided lightning weapon could precisely hit targets because targets represent better conditions for electricity than the ground. They use an ultra-short pulse laser of modest energy. It doesn't take much. That keeps the laser beam focused through its own intensity. The laser's electromagnetic field, since they're playing in the electromagnetic field, can harvest electrons from the air molecules to create the plasma pathway for electricity to follow. This is how it works. A very brief but incredibly intense laser beam paints the target. And the Army, 50 billion watts of optical power, about 500 million times more powerful than the light bulb illuminating your room. A very intense laser beams focus themselves in the air, and when they're intense enough, laser beams generate an electromagnetic field strong enough to rip electrons off of air molecules. So now they're using lightning. Are they using this for sources for the energy to resupply the ships in the sky? Are they doing it to store ground in the ground? Is this part of their harvesting the sun, like they talked about we talked last time on your show about using the radio frequencies in the sun to create all the energy on Earth? So no more of these energy from the Earth. It'll all be from the sky. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know, Jamie, but these are all, like I said, you have to ask a lot of questions. And even if the questions seem strange or odd or just out there, you have to start asking questions, because so far we've talked about cloaked craft of the sky and a sun simulator, and then with these, like you said, the high intensity electricity. There was one video I watched that you had put on your site, and that lightning strike to the ground was like something I had never seen before. And
right
when it lit up the sky, you were able to see these geometric shapes around the lightning, which I guess were craft, I guess.
Yeah, no, you couldn't make any other assumption, but they were coming from craft. That's what is up in our skies had shown, and that's what alerted me to it. And once I saw that, and I saw this video, and I could see the craft, yeah, definitely a craft coming out of there. It's shown time and time again at different parts in the sky, all emanating. There wasn't just one; there was several of them. So yeah, it's more and more confirmation, and we're going to get more and more of this confirmation. But again, the purposes of why they're doing this, why these lightning strikes, are they just testing for this EMP event where they're going to shut off all our power and they're going to only turn it back on to those with the credit scores that they like and whatnot? I don't know. I think thoughts I've never thought before, never thought I'd think, but interesting times indeed. But one thing real quick I want to do before I forget, I want to give a shout out to a few people like Cliff Carnicom, Sophia Smallstorm, who you had on your show, Deborah Tavares and Lou Tavares I've gotten to be good friends with here in California, are doing just yeoman's work with bringing truth out there. And especially Alana Freeland. She's got 2 books out. She's got a book on the sky fence. She's talked about this stuff for years in her wonderful, wonderful research. Her new book is called Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. And her previous book was Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Earth. And she's been saying this is happening. And I'm finally waking up, and I read her books, and it took me a while, but yeah, it's here. We do have a space fence. We do have an ionized sky. We do have a 1,000. The ceiling isn't very high too, Mike. I don't know if where you're seeing it, but when I'm looking up and I'm seeing Cessnas fly higher than these clouds, I know they're not very high. And you can see them, they're much lower. So there's a substrata of layer of clouds through these, what I call demonic devices, ghost ships, whatever you want to call them, that are laying these things out on a daily basis now for reasons, who knows?
Yeah, I had another good friend of mine lives on Long Island, and he told me a couple of years ago that they were laying the chemtrails down on Long Island, and he said to me, Mike, but they're not coming out of planes. I said, what do you mean they're not coming out of planes? He says they were coming out of like these big orbs. It was like an orb at the front, and the trails were following behind the orb, and that was really the first time. This is going back, maybe it's a few years ago. Lose track of time, but that was the first time that I was alerted to the fact that that it could be something other than what I perceived as a plane, because all I had ever seen was an airplane. But now we are seeing these trails being laid, and they don't look like airplanes. And the one channel you mentioned, Enslaved by No Media, was that the
Right.
channel you mentioned before? Yeah. So even when he's using his P900, when he zooms in on these planes, they don't look real. These planes look like they're projections, some kind of simulation.
Well, that's what he shows them going off, turning off. And what he chronicles is that they're less than 2,000 feet in the sky. They're only 5 feet to 10 feet in diameter, and they're a hologram. So I'm thinking there's some type of seeds up there that they seed up there, and then they just accentuate using vibrational frequencies, electromagnetic pulsing, to activate it. But they put a fake simulated plane that only goes for a certain distance, because what Enslaved by No Media also points out is our scope of view is much shorter and closer than we are perceiving. We cannot see more than 2 miles. So what you're seeing is much closer to you than you've been led to believe. And then he's got another footage, I think it was him or somebody else, that was up in a plane at 30,000 feet, and they were filming a hot air balloon. You see that one below them? And the hot air balloon he pulled it in on the zoom, and it was right below him. It wasn't more than a couple thousand feet below him. And he contacted the balloon guy, and the balloon guy said, I was up at 4,000 feet. So that means the planes were not flying at 30,000 feet. And other people have brought in their measurements onto the planes and measured that the altimeter is only reading 7,000 and 8,000 feet inside the cabin. But if there's cabin pressure, I'm being told that the barometer reads 7,000 feet. So I'm not sure if that's valid. But we're seeing that things are, one, much closer than they appear. These chemtrail planes. I haven't seen a real chemtrail plane in a while. I've seen these fake ones, and now that I got my P900, I'm zooming in and I'm watching them go away. I'm watching them kind of be this image where you can see through the tail. You can see. You remember the video he had of the alleged chemtrail plane where the chemtrails were coming out of the front of the plane? They were ahead of the plane, And then he shows the other one, which I thought was incredible too, and great work by him as well. His name's David, where he's showing the chemtrails drifting to the left while the plane is going to the right. And then another wonderful piece he shows is the chemtrail planes will stay in the sky for 10, 15 minutes, while a Cessna Piper Cub plane near airport will fly by in a matter of seconds in your field of vision. So that means these things are going either much smaller or much slower than we're seeing. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we need to get up on a plane and get a big net and see if we can catch one of these things. I don't know.
Well, the disconcerting part of this is that they're able to create these very realistic holograms.
Yep.
So I think people need to sit with that a little bit and try to understand what it is we're saying. They can create a very, very false reality, but you believe it's real. So you're seeing these planes in the sky and you're looking up and you're thinking, oh, there's a plane and it's spraying. But in reality, there are very, very few planes probably today that are actually dumping the chemicals in the sky. I think initially, there were real planes. In fact, I know there were because I would be up in an airplane, and I used to do a lot of traveling, Jamie, from here to New York on business. And I was up at, well, allegedly 30,000 feet, and I would see a plane, nearby flying alongside us, and they were dropping trails. And it was, didn't look like a hologram. It was a plane. So there are real planes that are spraying, but I always used to question the number of planes that were doing it. I thought to myself, is every single plane spraying? And these planes are spraying in areas that they're not routes, they're not commercial aircraft routes.
Right.
How do you explain that, right? So then they must be military craft that are going up and they're spraying in those areas. But I don't know. I think it's a combination now of real craft and whatever technology they have, utilizing holograms to give the appearance of a plane, but something else is spraying. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling. If it's these craft that can cloak, I don't know. I'm sounding like a crazy man right now. I'm sounding like an
we don't know. I mean, we don't have we're just putting pieces together of this puzzle.
Yeah.
And this is a brand new puzzle box we just opened, and we're just getting the pieces. This is how it worked with Flat Earth too. And then people start submitting, things get disclosed, but something big has gone on. I mean, let's go back to, the Google of everything, loon balloons. Remember the loon balloons are supposed to be these things that are for the communication devices to help us to have internet because satellites don't exist, and so they have the balloons all around the sky.
That was proof that satellites did not exist.
Exactly. But
Project Loon, right.
Yeah, but what is up in our skies is saying is these are refueling stations for chemtrail holding mixtures, devices that they park up in the sky. And then you got Elon Musk and Bezos Jeffrey, owner of the Washington Post, besides Amazon and besides Whole Foods now. And you've got them putting up things into the sky, like right and left, more and more on, the SpaceX and everything. Are they taking the sun simulators up? Are they refueling the stations with these crafts up there? Microsoft just announced with, who's Gates' partner, Paul, what's his name, financed the largest Microsoft plane. Now you're going to make me think of the name Paul.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But they just rolled out this big, huge, massive plane, this twin jet plane with these tiny wings that can't hold fuel that's supposed to go up in the stratosphere to carry things. But they don't say what they're carrying. So I'm wondering if they're using all these ships to constitute to put up more for these devices, resupplying and putting these sun simulators, moon simulators, demon crafts up in the sky. But they're using now these new carbon fiber elevator ladders, Jacob's ladders up into the sky that we actually had a film on that somebody took from over in the Netherlands, I believe, that showed it. And I just went, oh my gosh. And then looking back on this information, we've seen that Boeing's been working on an elevator to the sky for over a decade as well. So I don't know. I mean, we know we can't get out of the dome. So they're just taking the above us and they're layering all these different layers of false skies and hiding things behind them. And then using these simulators and elevators and demon shit. I don't know. I'm listening to myself thinking I need to go and check myself. I never knew the rabbit hole would get this deep.
I know it's lunacy. And I just want to mention to the folks, just swinging back a little bit when I talked about the sun simulator and these other celestial bodies in our sky and so on. There's a very, very good documentary by Thunderbolts Project called Symbols of an Alien Sky. And this documentary came out a few years ago, and it talks about how in the past, our ancestors, going way back, they had documented a completely different configuration in the sky, completely different than what we know today. And so I really highly recommend that and I'll put the link down in the description box below, that everybody watch that documentary, okay? Because if you're thinking, that's ridiculous, Mike, you're really off your rocker, the configuration of the constellations or the celestial bodies change. Oh my God, I can't listen to this anymore. Well, I'll tell you what, watch that documentary. It's very well put together. And after you watch that documentary, just sit with that a little bit and reflect, okay? It's excellent.
The electric universe.
Yes.
And that we do live in an electric universe. Yep. It's electromagnetic energy. It ties in with Tesla technology beautifully.
Yep.
And it's, again, what they've been hitting from us. So, free energy, free food. We could be living in ultimate peace if that's what we demanded, if that's what we really, truly wanted and had to make the changes that were necessary so that all could live in peace and harmony. That's where we're heading with this stuff. But first, we have to understand what is being done to us, the Luciferian creed, the dark forces that want us to not let our souls incarnate, to want us to keep us in the hell realm of physicality. And this is what they're doing to us. And so for us to rise up now is paramount and tantamount to us waking up. And as our consciousness wakes up, like you're doing and I'm doing, we're also helping wake up others, when in turn are helping wake us up. And so there's this collective consciousness going on around the world, like an album around the world, not a sphere. And it's world. The original world, W-O-R-L-D, was pronounced W-H-I-R-L-E-D, because we're an electromagnetic universe. So all of this is about our great awakening, and be blessed enough, I see this as a blessing too, that we've been allowed to disclose 500 years, 1,000 years. We're talking maybe hundreds of thousands of years of our history being uncovered and disclosed and brought out into the open, so that more and more of us can be awakened as to the great lies and the great truths, the great cosmic truths, that we're all in this together. We all need love to survive. And if we don't get back to our knitting, if we don't get back to what's important, to love one another, know our food supplies, know where our water comes from, find our own ways to live in a much more like mind with Earth, and biomimicry, and learn to imitate Earth, we're done. We haven't learned our lessons here. So that's what this is about. And they're giving us these great insights, even though it's super dark, even though it's super difficult. We were called for these times. We were called to step up to the plate. So I honor that we're being able to do this for, I don't know, I've been doing it since 2007. I think you've been doing it similar time, but it's been great. And I don't regret a minute of it. And if they take it away, they take it away. But, so be it.
Well, all we can do is what we're doing, right? Is to continue to try to get the word out, to dig into this stuff, research it, and try to get people to get their critical thinking going. And, to look at what's going on. And look, most people today, unless you are really, really under a rock, understand that something is terribly wrong with this place. And I'm even talking about the people that we consider to be asleep. Even they're starting to look around and think to themselves, you know what? Something's not right. So, and of course, we have all these different degrees of how awake people are. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, Jamie, is all the stuff that they're doing in our skies. Doesn't it make more sense that they're able to do it in an enclosed environment versus what they try to sell to us as far as space and all of that stuff? They're in this enclosed environment. There is this firmament, this barrier, this dome, whatever you want to call it. And, of course, they know this. And so they're able to do the things that they're doing because they are operating within a controlled environment. And they know everything about this controlled environment. They know everything about how it works, what doesn't work. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, that's, to me, all the stuff that's going on, to me, just lends credence to the fact that we're enclosed.
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious now to people that are waking up. I mean, it's just I have a license plate that says flat Earth. It's flat. And I've had it for 2.5 years now, and over the past month, before that, no one had ever commented or said a word. A couple people, but not much. But now I'm getting honks. People are putting thumbs up. I mean, this flat Earth meme is going all around everywhere. But getting back to your point, when I did my research about back whether or not we had a dome, electromagnetic dome, 1927, Admiral Byrd was financed by Rockefeller to go down to Antarctica and came back with 27,000 pages of what he found down there. And he went back 3 more times, including Operation High Jump, where it was 1946, and they had a mass a re-up after World War II, or 1946, and they went back down to Antarctica with 30 ships. And these ships were on a mission. Admiral Crutzen told Byrd 2 weeks before he was to lead these 30 ships down on the command ship Olympus. He didn't even know what the mission was. So they scrambled. They had to bring aircrafts out of recommission them from the war and whatnot, and they had to bring people back to serve to go down to Antarctica. They said to test for cold conditions. Well, this was to test the electromagnetic domes, and as soon as they flew these special planes in to see how far over the ice shelf they could get, all of them died. All the electromagnetic circuitry died. So then in the 50s, they came back with Operation Deep Freeze, several missions, when they installed all of the HARP and the satellites all around the Antarctic Circle. And then you have your dome right there once they figured out the electromagnetic frequencies. And then in 1961, they removed between Russia and the United States the thermonuclear ban test treaty so they could detonate 49 thermonuclear missiles into the dome to see if they could break it apart. It was the largest military operation since World War II, naval operation in the southern seas. And it blacked out 700 miles away. It blacked out parts of Hawaii when they tried to do this, and they couldn't blast through the dome. And this is when they created NASA right after that. So yeah, they've known about this electromagnetic energy, free energy in an enclosed environment. And with all the technology, I mean, I tell people all the time to think. You're flying on a plane, you've got your laptop or whatever device, and you can get internet streaming, downloading and uploading at 30,000 feet allegedly, going at 500 miles an hour. What do you think the military technology has had for 100 years?
Right.
It's mind-blowing what they've had, and so we got to understand these frequencies that they're able to hop on. That's why they're lowering these ceilings to create this ionized sky, because they can use it like the ionized sky up at 16 miles at 1,000 feet. How much more acute can you control your frequencies if you wanted to control people, control the weather, mind control, whatever you want to do? So yeah, I mean, we're just puppets in their play.
So the dome, I had Martin Kenny on my show, and I love Martin's work. And,
he's great.
He's absolutely unbelievable. And he explains that the dome, what we're calling a dome or barrier, is really a toroidal field. It's a torus.
Right.
And that mainstream science, well, they refer to it as the Van Allen belts. You see? So, and I think there was an article going back to around 2015 where there was a paper that came out of, I think it was the University of Colorado, where they had said that they had, quote unquote, discovered that there was a barrier, and they said it was glass-like. And this was in the mainstream publication. I believe it was the University of Colorado. I will try to dig the article up and put the link in the description box if I can find it again. The reason why I'm saying this, Jamie, is because they're actually putting a thread of truth out there.
Right.
And because the best lie always has a basis in truth. They have to keep some semblance of the truth going through that thread. And this is what they do. They feed us lies, but underneath that lie, there is a thread of truth. So when we talk about a barrier, whatever it may be, a toroidal field, they call it the Van Allen belts.
Right. Yeah, and Van Allen, James Van Allen, was a partner with Admiral Byrd and went down to Antarctica. And when they couldn't blow the hole in the dome, they at the height, I think it was 62 miles. That's where they created the Van Allen belt. They called it the Van Allen belt, was where the dome was. So if we're only 60 miles up, that the dome is a watery expanse above it, the stars are behind it, and the shimmery luminary stance and whatnot, that just makes so much sense to me. And then just to continue on for all the non-believers of flat Earth. Do you remember Edgar Mitchell? Edgar Mitchell allegedly went to space, and apparently he saw stars where these other guys, Glenn and these others, have stated unequivocally that there were no stars to be seen because the sun was too bright. So you got conflicting stories going on, but it's just one more thing in the quiver of proof that the Earth is not what they say it is, that we're not spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and going 1,000 miles a second around the sun and going 600,000 miles around the Milky Way. Well, the stars above us never change over centuries. And, the one thing I always like to ask people real simply, take an orange or something around a tennis ball and draw a circumference around the center line and say that's the equator, right, on a round ball. And they say, yeah. I say, okay, well, draw the lines where 24 hours in a day go on the North Pole, please.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
No.
They cannot do it. I said, so how do we have 24 hours in a day when you can't even show me how the division of 24 hours works on a round ball?
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all. And you and I have been on this for years, so it's nothing new. But, it's nice to talk about flat Earth again, because you and I both have not been posting much on flat Earth because there doesn't seem to be much that new information. But there's so many sites out there on flat Earth. It's incredible.
Yeah. My position on it is that I have pulled back from it only because I want to move the ball forward to the next level. And to me, the next level was when I had Martin Kenny on, and he talked about his work in syncretism, and he spoke about and presented his cosmic egg model, which makes a lot of sense to me, a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Martin, to me, he took it to the next level, and that's what I'm interested in. It's not to downplay any of the flat Earth work that's out there, because it's out there. So for anybody that wants to find out more about it and do research into it, there's plenty of material available on YouTube and on websites and blogs and so on, where they can get themselves acclimated and they can learn. But for me, I didn't want to just hang there. I didn't want to hang in that place where, okay, all right, we've said just about all we can say about it at this moment in time, based upon how it was being presented over the last 3 years or so. I don't want to stick on that. We need to keep moving the ball forward. So that was my premise with it. So some people asked me if I abandoned it, and I said, no, I didn't abandon it. I tried to explain exactly what I just explained, and I said, if you want to see where I'm at with it now, watch the interview I did with Martin Kenny, or better yet, go to Martin's channel and go take a look at what he's researching and what he's trying to get people to understand.
Yeah, exactly. And I was on that same path with the cosmic egg for a while with Victor Schauberger and Rudolf Steiner's work,
yep,
where they had the cosmic egg theories as well. So we're reconnecting with some of these ancient masters of knowledge, and getting in. I want to write a book on the 5,000-year legends and mythology and history of flat Earth, where the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Vikings, all the Native Americans get all their flat Earth lore and history out. And you'll see it's such a bigger picture than just the physical plane. And I think that's where we need to go with the flat Earth, is what does it mean in the many dimensions that we're learning about? Mount Meru corresponds exactly with the top of our heads, the soft spot in our heads, where we're told by the Dalai Lama, Steiner, and others that when our spirit leaves our body, it goes through that soft spot through the top of our head, which also coincides with Earth, as above, so below, Mount Meru. So this is all kind of getting into back to the spiritual journey that this is leading us to. So if we lose all our material values, what is left? What is left when the dense matter is gone and it's pure light? It's the light of our consciousness. And this is where we're bringing the light into the dark. And once we bring light into this darkness, and that's why this work I feel is so important, is because it cannot be in the dark any longer. That's what we're doing here. And even though it's the most difficult task to break wind, to be the front guy in the peloton, to do all the heavy lifting and get all the slings and arrows from the mass ignorance while you're trying to figure stuff out, it's the work of the wounded healer. It's the work that's been called over what Joseph Campbell called it, the journey of the hero, the hero's journey. And that's what we're all about here. And it's up for all of us to step up now, because not only for all children, not only for all sentient beings, but for Mother Gaia, the earth herself. She is being destroyed in so many different ways. We think about how personally this is all attacking us. Well, she's just getting beat up, like using her as a sewer in a supply house and now spraying her and taking away her environment. She's going to do what she's going to do, and she's been around longer than us. So we better start giving some thanks to the lady that gives us all life and Father Sky, like the ancients did, because this is a time of reckoning. This is a time of great conscious awakening, but we're also setting the stage for future consciousness, future awareness that can pick up from here, from the work we're doing, just starting the turn of the Titanic, starting to turn the wheel, telling the people, hey, don't listen to the band anymore. Get in the lifeboats, folks. We still got time.
Right.
And, it's just about more and more about deciding what to do, and then finding that in feeling, in trying, and if you think you're feeling helpless, think again. There's so many things you can be doing by researching, starting your own channels like you and I have done and these others have done, speaking out, talking to your families. You're not going to be the most popular person in the room. Get over it. But it's what needs to be done. They're spraying our skies. People are getting sick. Children have never been sicker than they've ever been. The Western medical industry is in complete disarray. Trump's gutting it anyway. But in the United States, nobody talks about, excuse me, doctors, you suck. We rank 38th in the world in quality of care, and we can't even say the doctors suck. I mean, we're terrible. We got more sick children than anybody else in the modern world. Our medical care costs more than anybody else. And if we decide to opt out, they tell us our children can't go to school. How messed up is that? So it's about taking your own action. It's about stepping up. It's about deciding who is the author of your own authority, but you're going to have to take the bullets that come with it. You're going to have to take the collective willful ignorance of the many who look at you like you're from somewhere else or you don't belong here because you don't agree with them any longer. You don't fit in. I don't want to fit in this world. This world's too messed up.
Yeah. If you're fitting in, you're screwed up. Because you're playing along with a very, very wayward place. Now, it's interesting, Jamie, while you were speaking and you were talking about how tough it is, sometimes to step out and start to talk about the truth. It reminds me, I interviewed James Perloff going back about 3 or 4 years ago, and the name of his book was Truth is a Lonely Warrior. And I remember what a great title. What a great title. Yep. Truth is a Lonely Warrior, because that's exactly it, folks. It can be lonely. And I want to add, Jamie, that aside from putting information out and doing research or maybe doing podcasts or blogs or websites, one of the most important things that people have to do first and foremost is to connect back to spirit. You have to do your inner work. And because for me, when I reconnected back to spirit, that's when a lot of things started to fall into place. That's when I started to become more discerning about what was going on in this reality and starting to realize that this is not at all what I thought it was. There's something, again, I'm saying this over and over again, something's very, very wrong here. And so once you do that inner work and you connect back to spirit, there's just something about doing that gives you that confidence, that gives you that motivation and that drive to plow ahead, regardless of how much you're going to be ridiculed. Because you and I both know, you're going to get ridiculed.
Right.
And at first, for me, it was tough. It was very tough to present something and talk about it, and then only to have friends and family scoff or tell me I was crazy or I was a conspiracy theorist and all of that stuff. So in the beginning, it was difficult because nobody likes to be called names and ridiculed.
Right.
But, what happens is the more you do the work, the more you realize, you know what? I don't give a flying shit what they say because I'm right, or a lot more right than they are. I'll phrase it that way because I don't want to make it sound like, I know all. I don't know all. It's a process of discovery and exploring and learning. But over time, what happens is you do get very thick skin and you're able to, you weather the storm. The ridicule and all that stuff just doesn't bother you anymore. I mean, for me, at least, it doesn't bother me. I just continue to do what I need to do.
Well, yeah, and that's stepping up to the plate. The bell's been ringing now that something's seriously wrong with the world for decades. And we are getting now just so many indications from so many different places that the future for all life on Earth is questionable. You and I talked about would we hit the reset button if we could on the last show, and we both agree that we would. But if you knew that the house was on fire and that it was burning and it's going to burn everybody in it, would you say something? It's as obvious as that to you and I. And so we have to speak. We can't be silent. Silence is betrayal, as Martin Luther King said way back when. And so to not speak is being a disservice to humanity in my terms. And I don't want to judge others because everybody's waking up at different times. But my God, people, how much more information do you need? Your lifestyles are not more important than the greater good of all. It doesn't matter if you desire it and you have all the wealth in the world when your children aren't going to have a life, when robots are going to be replaced, when they're going to have tattoos on their arms. My 12-year-old son's gaming. I noticed one of the games in there, not Minecraft, but one of the others, is showing these guys, these characters having tattoo on their arm to remember all their missile codes and all their stuff. They're pre-programming the children in the freaking social media devices your children are using for their future.
Right.
And $15 an hour is the pay. And Foxconn in Wisconsin's coming in, the biggest computer manufacturer in the world of Wisconsin, the Paul Ryan State. And they're going to be putting us into little manufacturing jobs. That's why the Common Core is being written in code, because we're going to be in the United States retooled. And I'm conjecturing that all the online, it's convinced all the cryptocurrency is coming at the exact same time. The online stores are closing down. What a coincidence. The autonomous cars, what a coincidence. But what are they going to do with all these malls, all these dead malls that are everywhere? They're going to use them for re-education centers. Look at them. They can be turned into Walmart prisons. A little sidebar I learned about just recently was Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. He was the guy that put together all the internment camps for the Japanese back in 1944. And Walmart backwards is martial law. So we have, and you read their manifesto, you read Albert Pike's manifesto about the three great wars, and it talks about annihilation. Yeah. And the female America, Persephone, that sits on top of the dome of the White House, is a female entity. And the whole reason, Michael, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is one of the most profound discoveries I discovered about why men must kill. Not women, men. What we're seeing is mostly men that are running the show. The Jesuits I've called about many times. The Men in Black was a movie about them. Why do the men have to kill and destroy? Why have we been 5,000 years of this destructive pattern of male Aries warring? Why has this been going on? And the very simple answer is that women, when they reach their end of their menstrual cycle and what's it called when they menopause, they can no longer produce eggs, no longer can produce life. But the male sperm lasts through their entire life. So their thinking is over long term that the male is the creator and the female is just the servant. And so that's why they must create the crisis, and destroy her over long periods of time. And that's what Albert Pike prophecies have said, that the United States, with the Washington, D.C., the corporation that was founded by the Jesuits in 1871 with the Organic Act, with the states on each side being Virginia the Virgin and Maryland Mary, must be destroyed. And that's what they're in the throes of now. And so that is their plan that they've been planning on. They've chronicled now since 1887 that Albert Pike wrote the Three World War Prophecies.
Yeah. And I mentioned on one show, whether it was with Mark Devlin or with Crow, that the part of this that folks have to really come to grips with is that their planning is decades and decades and decades and decades ahead of when anybody even remotely becomes aware of what it is that's going on. That's the thing. There is the controlling apparatus, the mechanisms that are in place, Jamie. That's probably the most disheartening aspect of this, is that they have been at this for a very, very long time. Very long time.
Yep.
And of course, it's all secretive, right? It's all done in symbols, right, and it's all encoded. It's occulted. The average person, even the brightest average person, is not going to figure this stuff out because they're all distracted by, all of the aspects of the material world. Going to the movies, watching TV, going out to eat, watching football games, all of that stuff is a major distraction. And you could be the brightest bulb or think you're the brightest bulb in the world, but you do not know what they know, period. And, this has been going on a very, very long time. And that's the part of it to me that I'll tell you, sometimes, like I said, I always try to stay positive, going to move the ball forward. But I don't know. It makes you pause and think about it, to think about the magnitude of what's been going on and for how long.
Right. And that they have the book, Dean Garner has written some books on the Jesuits that are really important. And he talks about the book of continuity that they have, that they pass on from generation to generation to generation. And so when they pass these books on, this is a part of their continuity of their programming and their ultimate goals to be realized. And they've been extremely successful. When they cut off oil supplies to Japan and China, which helped start World War II, that was part of the Jesuits getting even with the Japanese, because the Japanese banned the Jesuits 100 years before that. This is how long they've been rolling. And if you get back to Father Rivera's work, that he was inside the Vatican, he was inside the catacombs, he was in the secret libraries, and he got killed for disclosing this information. They even created Islam back in 1034 or 1134. Right. They created Islam. So our perspective, and this is why the Anunnaki, our perspective of history, our perspective of what we've been taught is completely wrong. And my new book's titled Everything is a Lie, Nothing is True.
That's
because
right, too.
This is where we're at. Yeah, because everything has been a part of central programming for so long. To know what is true or what is not, you have to create a tabula rasa and erase everything you've thought. And that's why I've been fortunate, because I never went through the school programming. I was never a gifted child. I had to learn everything through the school of hard knocks, but it allowed me not to have all this pre-programming, getting my doctorate to be indoctrinated through my gradual degrees and mastering the school indoctrination, where the highest paid people at the universities where the kids are in massive debt are the football and basketball coaches. That's how we honor our universities, by paying our sports guys the most, more than any. And then the professors get paid, but the assistants get paid minimum wage. It's all about taking your money, folks. Sending your kids to college is a waste. Get them started in business, teach them how to grow food, get them some farmland or something. It's going to be much more critical going forward than following the same paradigm. Yeah. Learn a vocation. Plumbers out here are getting paid $80 an hour, learn skills, learn where things come from, read books, get books. How long is the internet going to be available? And if they shut down the internet and the available access, or we choose not to access it because it's too big brother, what is left?
Yeah.
Books.
Yeah. Digital books can be altered at any time.
Oh, yeah. We're finding that all the time. Yeah. The Mandela effect, I'm finding they just said YouTube in one of their censoring things is going to be using Wikipedia as their source for fact checking. And I went back and again, how we're connected to the universe. I love telling the story, is that, I don't know if I said this to you before, but how many breaths in a minute do you think we take, Michael? How many in and out, one breath?
I don't know.
How many do you think we take?
I don't know.
Between 16 and 18 on average.
Okay.
So let's say 18 breaths in a minute. So 18 breaths times 60 is 1,080 breaths in 1 hour. 1,080 breaths in 1 hour times 24 hours is 25,920 breaths we take on average in a day. Okay. Now, do you remember Plato's great year, the Vedic great year of the constellations up in the heavens? It takes the 12 zodiac cycles to rotate it through its entire zodiac cycle. Each cycle is 2,160 years times 12. 2,160 times 12 is 25,920 years.
There you go.
The cosmic influence of above is in us. As above, so below. So we are Christ consciousness. We are the creator. We are not separate from. We're not a part of. We're a part of, not apart from. We take nowhere, we put a little space, and we're now here. And this is what we got to wake up to, is being present and being awake. And when I found the more I'm awaking, the more difficult it is, the more angels I'm finding to help me. I don't know if you found the same thing, but I'm looking for the right song or I was trying to find this video of this elevator thing. I'm looking and looking, and then all of a sudden I just pulled up one thing and there it was. It just came. And this happens to me all the time now. So I know there's help once we start doing the work we're supposed to be doing. So live in the fear of facing everything and responding, or fact-checking evidence, academia and research, or looking up false evidence appearing real. But don't live in fear of fleeing everything and running. That's what the easy way out is. And this isn't supposed to be easy. These are hard lessons. These are Saturnian lessons. We're going into the Aquarian age, which is of the mind, but its ruler is Saturn, the hard lessons. So embrace it, take it on, and your life will be more fulfilling. But hide and run away, and you're never going to see what happened. And you're always going to be wondering, your last thoughts are going to be, huh?
Yeah, and there's no place to run or hide. I mean, that's the thing.
No,
right.
That's the thing. We're all in it together. So it should be bringing us together because we're all looking at the same thing, but we're not all seeing the same thing because of the expert programming that's been going on, like you said, for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, this has been really a fabulous discussion. It's been probably one of the wildest ones we've had, but like I said, it's good stuff. And folks, like I said, I'll put links down in the description box. I will try to add video as long as the owners of that video are okay with me incorporating it into my show. And take a hard, close look at this stuff, okay? Because as we mentioned earlier in the show, something is definitely going on. Okay, it's definitely going on, and we need to do the best we can to understand it. So, Jamie, with that, where can the listeners find your work and more of your research?
Well, for the time being, Michael, I've had business cards with all my links printed up and I've had to redo them 3 times. So my current website, that's the flagship, is A Plain Truth on YouTube, PLANE truth.info. And my backup site is Questioning Everything to Find Truth. 3 websites. One website is the same name, aplaintruth.info. Another website, Taboo, for Towards a Better Understanding, tabublog.com is information. And then I have a vaccine website, phonetically Apple Victor Victor Ida.info, AVVI.info. I've got 2 books out. One is called Flat Earth: Investigations of 5 Years of a Great Massive Heliocentric Lie, and Geoengineering versus Chemtrails, which is now outdated.
500
investigations into 500 years.
Yeah.
And the Chemtrails investigations into the 6th grade extinction event. And I just want to leave this on this, Michael.
You don't do enough.
What you're doing more and more. I mean, I don't know if we're just getting our creative flows, but I look at your posts every morning and you're posting how do you find time between putting out all this music and doing all these interviews and posting all this? I mean, I'm in awe. I mean, I thought I'm doing a lot, but looking at you, I got to catch up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like once you get into the groove and the swing, you just do it, So, but no, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, and I think we feel a sense of time, that the time's urgent. So we're trying to get as much out as we can to awaken and inform others as we're waking up ourselves. But I implore everybody to just go and research and getting back to the ancient Greeks who know a lot more than us, the 4 cardinal virtues of Plato. Can you name one of the 4, Mike? Because you represent all 4.
Well, I don't know. You caught me off guard on that.
All right. So the first one is wisdom, quote from Plato. Wisdom is the leader. Next follows moderation. And from the union of these 2 is courage springs justice. So the 4 virtues are wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice. And that's where we need to come to. And so we're coming back full circle. The ancients knew, and now we're beginning to remember, to re-know, to reconnect again, because this is all lost wisdom, lost knowledge. And I thank you, sir, for bringing that knowledge to many of us to help our awakening as well. And I just try and shine my light brighter. And if my light is brighter, others may be able to see their path better. And that's all I'm trying to do here. It's not about the money, because there's no money to be made. It's about the effort. It's about putting yourself out there for the greater good. And I honor you and Sophia Smallstorm and Alana Freeland and Deborah Tavares, all you courageous warriors. You feed me. You feed my energy, and thank you.
Well, that's the thing, there's a whole bunch of us out there, and, and we sometimes know each other. Sometimes we know each other well. Other times we're acquaintances and stuff like that. But there is a lot of sharing that goes on. And whether that be sharing by doing podcasts or sharing by putting information on the blog or on websites, it's important to share each other's work best we can, because that's the only way we're really going to make an impact, because the mainstream media obviously is commandeered. So we've got to pool our resources in order to to be able to have an effect. And so I think that we all, generally speaking, Jamie, do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to mention, which is a very interesting last thing, which I'm going to talk in general terms because they're getting deeper into it. But with all the vaccines and stuff, there's just a few left, especially children who haven't been vaccinated or been able to avoid it. And they're starting to form little private groups to keep the purity of humanity protected. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about that 97, 98, 99% of people have all been vaccinated and contaminated, is there humans left of natural origin, or have we all turned into AI? And so there's these groups that are starting to form, and maybe we can do a whole other show on this, but you out there listening, start thinking about that, that we need to protect our species. It's a hell of another subject, but yeah, it's just something I want to throw out there.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Hey there, brother, take a look around. Does it bother you that the world is upside down? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, sister, look out your door. Does it bother you when your child goes to war? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, neighbor, look to the sky. Does it bother you that your life is a lie? Can't you see? You're not free. I know you can be if you try. I know you can be if you try. Hey there, Father, standing in the rain. Does it bother you that you never took the blame? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, mother, time is passing by. Does it bother you if a child doesn't fly? Can't you see? You're not free. Hey there, stranger, have you lost your soul? Does it bother you when you don't even know? Can't you see? You're not free. I know you can be if you try. I know you can be if you try.